Okay, thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Town of Stellarton Council meeting for May 11th, 2022, 12 p.m. start time. We are meeting in the council chambers. I'm virtual. I'm in a COVID restriction, so we're meeting virtually. The rest of the council is in the chambers. I'm the virtual member. Is there any additions or changes to the agenda? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve it, please?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Moved by Councillor Lawan, seconded by Councillor Campbell. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary minded. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. So we'll move on to item 2, which is a presentation of the budgets.
So you have your paperwork in front of you. We'll start with the general operating budget. The form is set out, so the budget for 21-22 is to the left. The pre-audit or finalizing of 2021 actuals are in the middle, and to the right is the budget proposed for 22-23. There's total residential and resource assessments of $194,533,800 at a rate of $1.82 for 3.54 million of tax revenue. Commercial at assessment value of $80,072,500 at 415 for taxes at 3.3 million. Overall taxes of 6.8 million. When the budget was initially prepared, it was not balanced and would have warranted a tax rate increase for 22-23. During 21-22, there was an additional $500,000 of financial capacity grant from the province to the town of Stellarton. It doubled what we formerly called equalization, now called financial capacity grant. Council approved for those funds to go to operating reserve. This budget proposes that $350,000 of that $500,000 is used to balance the 22-23 budget, therefore not requiring an increase in taxes for 22-23. So if we go down through the revenue lines, we just discussed the tax rates and tax values for 6.8 million. Our actuals for the previous year were about 6.8 million as well. There's only a difference of $30,000 of increased revenue from taxes. Residential is up 199,000, commercial is down 168,000. To note, this is tax rate only. The town has no additional user fees. So the 6.8 of total revenue is tax rate only. Special tax agreements of Reliant and Heritage Gas, they're comparable year over year. The deed transfer tax, this is money that's collected for deed transfers, and 100% is remitted for the wellness center and the hospital. Whatever money is in, the exact same amount is in the expenses with a net zero impact on the budget. Grants in lieu of taxes are up slightly over the prior year. These grants include the Post Office, RCMP, the Department of Mines, Nova Scotia Power, and Fire Protection for NSCC. Other revenue from own sources, we always budget this area conservatively as it includes interest. We do have an anomaly in that the prior year has about 20,000 of income for workers' comp recovery and our sweeper truck sale, not expected to be repeated, which is why we are lower in the current year. The unconditional transfers, this is where you'll see the impact of the doubling of the financial capacity grant. If you see for 21-22, we have over $1 million. Our budget for 22-23 is $535,000. They have indicated that that doubling will not happen again for the current year. This also includes the HST offset. Both of those amounts are outside the control of the town. For conditional transfers, this means we need to spend money to receive money. This includes street crime unit, students, funding, MPAL, ACOA, and FCM for asset management. We are up $70,000 over the prior year just for the MPAL program and for the FCM financing of the asset management. Internal transfers, this is where you'll see the impact of that $350,000 to balance the budget. 210 of the 560 is from the water utility to cover admin costs provided to the water utility from general. and the balance of $350,000 is coming from operating reserve, which is $350,000 of the $500,000 of the doubling of the capacity grant. Total revenue, we're projecting to be down 2.72% over the prior year from 8.8 to 8.6, but again, the prior year has the additional $500,000. If I move on to expenditures, costs are back to a more realistic level now, post-COVID, so we're going to see an increase in training, which was reduced significantly during COVID. We're also impacted by fuel costs and insurance costs, so overall, this budget is going to be higher because of fuel, training, and insurance before we even apply increases for wages. Legislative services is budgeted at $122,000. This allows for each councillor a maximum of $1,000 per person for expenses. This council has year over year never spent their $1,000 per person, but we still budget for it. We also include conferences for NSFM and FCM, which did not happen in prior years, and there's also accessibility training included in that number. General government services, there's a bit of an anomaly in the prior year. We're looking like a significant increase. The prior year actually has about $100,000 of cost recovery that will not expect it to be repeated. $50,000 of that is an AR recovery, which is an indication of how good collections are. But also included, we have, as I've already stated, an increase for fuel, training, and insurance. There's about $30,000 in there for insurance. We also budget for damage claims at the maximum of $20,000. There are often years where that's not actually needed, but we budget for it. The asset management program, which is funded by FCM, is in these numbers to the tune of $55,000. We have reintroduced the facade program at $10,000. Protective services for policing, we have a contracted increase of 2.5%. We've moved a part-time officer who was working full-time hours to a full-time basis. We have an allowance for mat leave, and also training, fuel, and insurance are all up. So we've got $2 million for protective services for police. Protective services for fire, for $542,000. $20,000 of the increase is impacted by the hydrant cost. That is the charge from the water utility to the general fund, mandated by UARB as per a UARB calculation. We have no control over that. Also, fuel, insurance, conferences, and training are all up year over year. Transportation services. The prior year is lower in labor for almost $53,000 for time, Public Works time budgeted in operations, but actually used for capital. And that's just which pocket for the town does the money come out of. So it's coming out of reserve as opposed to coming out of operating. The budget increase does include significant amounts for repair and maintenance for vehicles, for streets, for sidewalks, and for sewer, including catch basins. Again, fuel, insurance, and training are all up. There's some small equipment purchases for about $20,000, which include a John Deere deck and a hot water pressure washer. So $2 million budgeted for transportation services. Environmental services at $829,000. There's an increase for a small increase for solid waste and ERIC. This also includes the REN and planning services. Recreation services at $180,000. This reflects an increase for active living services. This is also offset by the MPAL funding. But the increase in services does include, there's some grounds equipment to be purchased, there's dirt for all 7 fields, there's lime, there's foul poles to be replaced, bleachers at Sample Field, porta potties for the summer for McGregor Field, new soccer nets, new water slides. So a good investment in services under active living. Victor County Wellness Center, this is an anomaly. Normally we're showing an increase. This one shows a decrease. The reason for that is they're anticipating using deed transfer tax funds to reduce the impact of what is required by the towns to fund the operations of the Wellness Center. So we're only reflecting 272 this year. We're up as high as 355 last year. Cultural services, this includes the community center, library, Dean's. There's additional repair and maintenance for the library, And again, fuel and insurance are both up. Financing principal and interest, the prior year actuals are lower than budget, and there was a delay in receiving the funding for the Public Works building renovation. This meant there was no principal payment in the 21-22 year, which is one of the reasons why our actuals are lower than the budget. But also we refinanced the business park debt, and by refinancing it, we've lowered our interest costs, and that lower interest affects both 21-22 and 22-23. Outside service providers for the town, this would include PVSC, CHAD, CEF, and Homecoming. And the reason for the increase is $25,000 toward Homecoming. Outside service providers for the province, this includes the school board, corrections, and the seniors housing deficit. And the increase to 946 over 927 of the prior year is for the housing deficit based on preliminary projections. Transfer the transfer tax, this is simply the offset to the $100,000 in revenue. We're budgeting $100,000, which will be transferred to the Wellness Center, to the detransfer tax trust to be used for the Wellness Center and the hospital debt. Again, no net impact on the bottom line. No internal transfers this year. Prior year, the $700,000, that is $200 projected surplus for 21-22, and the $500,000 for the doubling of the financial capacity grant. So that's the money that's being transferred to reserve for 21-22, of which we're using for 22-23 to balance the budget to the tune of $350,000. Overall expenses, $8.8 million last year. Again, that includes the $500 capacity grant transfer and $8.6 million for the current year. Overall, a decrease of 2.72%. Any questions on the details?
Brenda, do you know off the top of your head how much we're going to lose to the mining building, or is you don't know what the loss is going to be in tax revenue for the
what?
Department of Mines building?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's no questions, we'll move on to the Water Utility Operating Fund. Again, the same layout, the budget for 21-22 to the left, the unaudited 21-22 actuals in the middle, and the budget for 22-23 to the right. Metered revenue were consistent with prior years at $210,000. Flat rate revenue consistent with prior years at $905,000. Fire protection is up to $733,000, and again, this is the calculation dictated by the UARB based on the expenses of the water utility of the prior year, and that is a charge that's revenue for the water utility. It's an expense to the Town of Stellarton General Fund and to the county for fire protection. Other is most generally interest, and there's some other sprinkler and hydrant charges. Overall, $1.858 million for total revenue, an increase of 1.94%. On the expenditure side, power and pumping at $197,000 over the $183,000 from the prior year. There are additional repair and maintenance costs there for the pumps. Purification at $625 over $574 for the prior year. The additional is for the powdered activated carbon for taste control. There's also some consulting fees related to the water taste, and also additional training to maintain certifications. Transmission and distribution at $174,000 versus $145,000. We always budget for unexpected repair and maintenance. So this would be if a water line breaks. This is the transmission and distribution. So if we have no water line breaks, very few costs are here. If we have a number of them, these costs can go up. So we try to budget for the worst case scenario. Admin in general at $249,000 versus $223,000. The prior year is lower than usual, again for AR recovery, for good collections efforts, and we had no advertising in 21-22. Depreciation at $410,000 versus $405,000 last year. This is a calculation relative to the asset base. Again, a cost there's no control over, but this actually does transfer. This money literally gets transferred to the water capital called depreciation reserve to be used for capital expenditures. Taxes at $134,000 means there's no change in the tax rate from the general fund. Overall total expenditures at $1.781 million, which is a 6.93% increase. We have a transfer from depreciation, which was approved by the UARB for $150,000, which provides revenue to the operating fund. Interest and principal on debt, again, these are down because the debt is reducing and we also refinance, so it is even lower than would be expected. So the business park and the water capital projects are all on the same debt, which had a balloon payment refinanced in the current year, and with that refinancing, lower interest. So the transfer from surplus in order to balance is $214,000. The water utility has an operating surplus at the end of March of 2022 of $1.26 million, so there is room for the $214,000 transfer from surplus to balance the budget. Any questions on the water utility? Okay, we'll go to the list of capital projects. For the general fund, we're proposing $1,386,000 of projects. For infrastructure, there's curb replacement, Call Avenue, Old Foxbrook to Poplar for $76,212, High Street Extension, Poplar to High for $79,261, Poplar Crescent for $76,212, and Oxford Street for $94,313, and a culvert head wall on South Ford Street for $50,000. For paving, we have Park Street paving and curb replacement for $193,451, and Kirk Avenue East top coat for $17,000. For sidewalks, Scotiabank, the Acadia Avenue side for $22,000, and Scott Avenue for $31,000. Equipment, street sweeper attachment for $25,000. We have some IT server requirements for the police service at $25,000 and for general operations at $30,000. And under recreation, we have the Albion ball field LED lights and fixtures replacement for $92,293. The tennis court resurfacing for $44,843, and outdoor fitness equipment for $20,000. Infrastructure project for water and sewer is Marie Street. The sewer lines are reflected in the general fund, the water lines in the water utility. The sewer line portion for Marie Street is $509,522. That total is $1,386,107, and it's funded by gas tax for $764,816. My apologies, that's now called the Canada Community Building Fund for $764,816. Municipal Finance Corporation, meaning borrowing, for $325,998. That's for the curb replacements. And from Capital Reserve for $295,293. Total funding of $1.386 million. Any questions on the general capital fund? On the water utility, we have equipment, the water meters, which everyone knows about, for $1.2 million. Raw water pump is required for $35,000, and the design of a fish ladder for $20,000. The infrastructure project, again, the water line portion on Marie Street is $443,325 for total capital of $1,698,325, all funded from the water depreciation fund. Any questions on water capital? You're on mute, Danny.
Thank you. So if there's no further questions for Brenda, I'd just like to thank Brenda for the detailed analysis that she just went through for us. I'd like to thank the rest of the staff as well for participating in the budget process and getting us to this point where we have a balanced budget. I want to thank the province of Nova Scotia for their increase in the doubling of the financial capacity grant. That really helped save us this year from as far as holding the tax rate, which is very important in this council. So we're very pleased the province was able to help us do that this year. The commercial tax assessment is down significantly due to the closing of the cannabis plant on Acadia Avenue. The bottom line, that's a couple $100,000 in revenue that we're missing because of that closing, so that affected us this year. And last year we didn't do a lot of capital, but this year we're picking back up the capital work once again. It's just seen presented by Brenda, so we're happy to be able to do that once again because capital work is important going forward, obviously. So those are the only comments I had. Is there any questions or comments from the rest of council?
Now, the only comment that I have, Your Worship, is on taxes. Maybe a question for the CEO. When was the last time we raised taxes?
1997.
Okay. And we were very close this year, and thank you for the government of Nova Scotia for the grant double last year that helped us with the reserve this year. And our promise to the residents is that we are working not to raise the taxes, but the way things are going, it might be impossible in the future. So, putting this out there, I guess. Thank you.
I got a question. When's the last time the assessments went up?
Assessments typically increase every year.
Thank you.
So our collection of residential taxes actually went up $200,000 because of the increase in assessments to Deputy Mayor Pence's point. So are we ready to have a vote?
If you can read the resolution there, Your Worship.
Okay. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Stellarton that the assessment for 2022-2023 is confirmed at $80,072,500 for commercial. Further, be it resolved the assessment for residential and resources is confirmed at $194,533,800. Further, be it resolved the tax rates for 2022-2023 be approved at $1.82 per $100 of residential assessment and $4.15 per $100 of commercial assessment. Further, be it resolved that the operating budget for 2022-2023 is approved at $8,630,439. Further, be it resolved the capital budget for 2022-23 is approved at $1,386,107.
So move.
I'll second that.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Pence, seconded by Councillor Knight. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Contrary minded. Motion carried, Nancy. Thank you. We have an open forum. Next, would anyone like to speak at the open forum?
Sorry, Your Worship, we need to approve the water utility as well.
So move, Your Worship.
I second.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Pence, seconded by Councillor Wand. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded. Motion carried, Nancy. Thank you. And I think that's it for business. We can move to open forum. Okay, so the next council meeting is a regularly scheduled one, June 13th, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. in the Stellarton Council Chambers. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So move.